Ian Murray, it's clear the economy is not back to where it was before the financial crisis when Labour were in charge. The Chancellor says he's still clearing up the mess that Gordon Brown left behind. He's got a point, hasn't he?
Well, this was a Groundhog Day budget from this Chancellor because, as Jeremy Corbyn said in the first few minutes of his response today, he's failed on the deficit, he's failed on the debt, he's failed on productivity, he's failed on exports, he's failed on cutting inequality, and more so, he's failed on the very poorest in this country. So I don't accept that at all. He promised this country that in 2010 that he would eradicate the deficit by 2015. He will borrow £72 billion this year, and he'll borrow £38 billion more over the course of this four-year period than even he said back in his autumn statement in November. So this is a Chancellor of complete failure who's passing budgets at the dispatch box, a political Chancellor who's more intent on getting into number 10 than he is on delivering a budget for the country.
Well, after the global financial crisis, how can you expect him to deliver an economy which is in glowing health in just a matter of a few years? This is a decade-long effort or more.
Well, that's what he promised to do in 5 years. And if you remember back to 2010, Alistair Darling's plan when he was still the Chancellor of the Exchequer was to halve the deficit in 5 years in order to not take all the money out of the economy that stops stimulus and growth and productivity. What this Chancellor is doing, he's on this slippery slope to austerity, he's on this slippery slope to a decade of austerity because he's taken far too much money out of the economy, which has strangled growth. That happens all over the world, and all the other countries who are trying to get out of this particular worldwide economic problem have put stimulus into the economy to invest in skills, invest in the future, and make sure that the growth in the economy is sustainable and long-term. He's downgraded his growth by 0.3% just since November last year. That's a damning indictment of his policies and shows that the policies he's pursuing in the economy is making the problem worse.
OK, Jeremy Purvis, your party, the Liberal Democrats, were in government with the Conservatives until quite recently. I wonder, what we're seeing from the Chancellor, it's more of the same, isn't it? The same tough measures, the same spending cuts that we got used to when you were in office as well.
There's a small part that's the same, and that's with the personal allowance at the start. But I think this is a budget where the clear differences can now be seen. We absolutely would not have raised the allowance for those earning high wages. In Scotland, we prefer to use the new powers for a new Scottish zero rate because we think that if there is to be any tax break, it should be those who are working very hard when prices are high and they need a break. We would also argue, and we did separate from the Conservatives at the general election, we would also argue that there needs to be much more considerable investment. So where the SNP and the Conservatives are joined together with refusing for considerable investment for the future of the Scottish economy, we are now signalling that we need to see that form of investment. In the Scottish context, £475 million a year with an increase of 1p on an income tax in Scotland. So we didn't see the kind of mechanisms, the kind of investment that's needed to grow the economy, and the very, I think, very modest forecasts of growth in the economy demonstrate the fact that austerity simply doesn't work to grow the economy to the significant amount that we want to see. So that's why in a Scottish context we are signalling for the future of the Scottish Parliament a different direction. I
just wonder, though, if you're trying to rewrite history, you know, your party backed spending cuts, you backed austerity for all those years while you were in power, enough certainly to stay in coalition with the Conservatives, and it has not done very much for the economy. The economy is still in a pretty rough shape, isn't it?
Let you, being the BBC, being accurate about history, when the coalition started and when Liberal Democrat ministers started, the personal allowance was just over £6,000. Now it's double that, and that's because it's the Liberal Democrats who are in the coalition that forced that through. The Conservatives have adopted that. The Labour Party did not have a policy. In fact, the SNP did not support that policy. They only supported the personal allowance at the low rate, only growing by inflation. So the biggest ever increase in the personal allowance for those who are low and middle earners in Scotland is because of Liberal Democrats. I'm not rewriting history. I'm only saying that the future requires investment, and that's why that's our top priority for the Scottish elections coming up.
OK, Ian Murray, where does your party stand on these tax cuts for middle-income earners, people earning up to £45,000? Would you like to see them reversed?
Well, we've said and set out already some of our bold plans to use the income tax powers that are currently at the Scottish Parliament and the full powers for income tax that are coming in 2017. We would put a penny on income tax, protect the lowest paid on that basis, and plough the money into making sure that we can protect Scotland's future.
And
it's
as
quite clear.
As an MP at Westminster, what would you do? Would you like to see that middle income tax cut reverse, the one that's been announced today by the Chancellor, the 42,000 to 45,000 tax cut?
Well, we've said that already within the Scottish context. That's one of the plans that we've put forward, because when we're faced with a choice between cutting into Scotland's future or using the powers that the Scottish Parliament's got, that we've all fought for on this panel to get to the Scottish Parliament, to create a powerful Scottish Parliament, we should be using those powers to get out of this spiral of austerity, to make sure we have a non-austerity budget to invest in the future. And that's the way you grow your economy, and that's the way you get out of this problem with debt, and you get out of this problem with deficits. That's the way to do it.
At Westminster, you're not going to make those changes. Your party at Westminster is going to leave that tax cut for the middle classes in place. That's clear, isn't it?
Well, I don't know if that is clear. I'm talking in the Scottish context, because Scotland will have the entirety of its income tax. There's a historic day actually here today at Westminster, because this is the last time a Chancellor will come to that dispatch box and actually set the income tax rates in Scotland, because by the 1st of April next year it'll be the entirety of the income tax will be at the Scottish Parliament, and we'll make that bold choice to make sure we get out of the spiral of austerity and invest in the future of Scotland, and that's what's important.